think we still have a couple of minutes before the next session. The speaker is already here, but I think we should. Hello, Curtis.
Good morning, evening, afternoon. Good to
Good
be here.
morning, good evening. Yeah, it's good to have you. Good to have you, Curtis. Yeah. I
Thank
think
you.
I'm
Thank
sure
you.
you've been gaining a lot. You've actually been joining us since the first day, and that's really, really good. And I'm sure a lot of people here are looking forward to your section. I don't know, would you like to start now, or do you want us to wait for your actual time?
Well, I would be
Just a
happy to
couple of
start.
minutes. Oh, okay. Awesome, awesome. Okay, yeah, I think we can just go on and we just have your session now. Okay, so I'll just do a brief introduction and then you can just take it away, okay?
Sure, thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, our next session is Curtis Lloyd. He's a lead consultant at Possibility Practitioners and a John C. Maxwell certified coach, speaker, and trainer. Curtis focuses on helping leaders unlock potentials through possibility thinking and transformation. Today, he'll be speaking on cultivating resilience in the face of change, a timely reminder that growth often begins as at the edge of discomfort. Please join me in welcoming Curtis as he takes the stage. Curtis, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. So good to be here once again. And I'm truly excited for this session. Yes, I've sat through this entire workshop from yesterday. We've had amazing and incredible sessions. And I'm not leaving anytime soon. I'm here all the way to the last session takes effect. But it's been incredible. Picking up from what my colleagues were sharing earlier, I think it set a very beautiful tone for what I'm about to share. I listened to Christine earlier on, an incredible presentation that she gave. And then Colette as well just summed it up in the most brilliant of ways. And I'm just going to build up on that conversation because I think we've had so much touch on AI. I will cause us to pause a bit because I'll go straight into what we've termed the human side of leadership. So it's a breather, if we may call it that way. What has been extremely comforting, I think, and deals with so much pain, especially for from the perspective of just general humanity out there, is what has AI come to do? And the general feeling has been it's come to replace, it's come to replace. But listening through the brilliant presentations that have taken effect already, I think we are so comforted. It hasn't come to replace any of us. But there's been caution, and I think I sum it this way. It may replace those who choose not to use it. So it hasn't come to replace us, but it may replace those who choose not to use it. And here's what we're going to look at in my session. But the introduction of who I am and what I do has already been done. So I'm a lead consultant for an organization called Possibility Practitioners, and everything else around that, I think, has already been touched. I have over 18 years of experience in the financial sector. I worked for two top banks where I am, and now currently lead this consultancy firm where we focus on training, equipping leaders into becoming just the kind of leaders that they are meant to be. And we do so many things that I wouldn't want to stress us with, so that we can just go straight into today's conversation. I will start with what I call the leadership paradox. It's an incredible observation, tested statistics, tested numbers, and it gives perspective of probably where we need to focus so much in terms of what we need to fix for the kind of work environment we're supposed to experience, for the kind of world we are envisioning. It's called the $357 billion question, because what this simply typifies is the fact that globally, we tend to spend over $357 billion on training. And I'm incredibly honored that People Ops would set up these platforms for free and bring in a global perspective to be coached and trained in what the global community has been charging for. So it tells you that in as much as we have platforms like this one that has been set today, we still have several million of other setups that actually call for trainings that are costly. Now, I should mention from the onset that yes, this could have been set up and then we are attending for free. But obviously, there's a cost that will be accrued and which will be rather expensed by People Ops. So this is me basically saying thank you so much for putting this together. The cost will be in different ways, of course. It's the opportunity cost, one of which, and obviously just the setup cost and everything. And that I'm truly grateful that you had to put us together for such a platform, which has been incredible. My notes are gouging from day number one to where we are today. I've been taking notes and just sharpening myself because I believe in one principle. There is no end to growth, and growth ought to be deliberate. So when we talk about the leadership paradox, we're simply talking about how that $357 billion is spent annually on leadership development, and yet only 21% of employees are engaged at work. But we're going to deal with this as we flip through the pages. I will start by looking at what we call the leadership myth. This is what Warren Buffett gets to talk about when he unpacks what is generally embraced as who on or what leadership is supposed to look like. The myth is basically that the most generous, or rather the most dangerous leadership myth in leadership context is that there is some genetic factor to leadership. In other words, it is assumed that human beings are either born with this genetic factor or not. And because of that, a number of people tend to believe that probably they were not wired for this. Because the myth asserts that people simply either have certain charismatic qualities or they do not. It's not something that you can grow. It's not something that you can build. It's not something that you can feel within you. It's either you have it or not. And so if you believe that you do not have it, then that's it. You relegate yourself to never being the kind of leader that you're supposed to be. I will start, and I want to believe I saw a number of colleagues because I've been connecting. This has been a beautiful platform. I've been connecting with colleagues, but I'll start with this concept that gets to give us an appreciation of where we are starting from when it comes to the human side of leadership. Because first of all, having established what people get to feel concerning whether they are a leader or not could be a product of the many elements that we may not have interrogated. And I will start by telling this beautiful story. And I was saying I've been connecting with a number of colleagues here, and I want to believe there could be some of them still here who could be from New Delhi right now. So if you are from New Delhi in India, please just say something in the chat box so that I make sure that I have somebody who is there, even just from India in general, because the story I'm about to share touches on India. Now, the validity of the story is something that we can talk about later, but the morality of it is something that will change our minds forever because it sets up a tone for everything else that we're going to discuss today. It's called the Cobra effect. Now, the Cobra effect is one of the most fascinating and ironic concepts when it comes to economic as well as policy-making decisions. It sets its tone from colonial India, which was, of course, colonized by the British. Now, when the British got into India, they got to find that there were so many cobras in India And because of that, I can see Nkechi says, this is scary. We are about to leave the screen. Don't worry, Nkechi. We are about to move away from that cobra. So because of the cobras that were so predominant in India then, the British who were colonizing India then decided to come up with a bounty for every dead cobra that any of the citizens would bring to them. So what happened is, just after that was announced, a few individuals began to, okay, I can see a hand raised there. Not so sure if I'll be taking questions now or we take as we go. I can be guided on the other end, but maybe I could take that one on if the question comes through.
Okay, I think they dropped their hands.
Oh,
If you
okay.
have any question, yeah, you can just put it in the Q&A section. So
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Oh, it was accidental. I see. So they've actually mentioned that it was an accidental recent hand. So they begin to offer a bounty for every dead cobra. And now the citizens would supply dead cobras, of course, in exchange of the reward that was given. Now, it started working very, very well. But after some time, the citizens came up with a strategy. And the strategy was where they began to breed these cobras. So they would breed the cobras. And when they breed them, they would kill from their stock and supply the dead cobra to the authorities. And what essentially happened was that communities became communities that were breeding cobras because now they started supplying them in exchange of the bounty that was given. You can imagine, eventually the British got to discover that there's this which is happening, and they had to freeze the incentive. Now, when the incentive was frozen, a bigger problem was created because everybody who had cobras that they were breeding had nowhere to take the cobras to. So guess what? They had to release the cobras in the wild. And now the problem of cobras was way bigger than it was when this incentive was introduced. So this is summed up as the cobra effect. It has a lot of stories on the sides in terms of what are your takeaway lessons, part of which is how organizations get to incentivize. But I want to side with where we will branch off and probably settle it in the fact that human beings are usually moved by either risk or reward. They always get tilted towards what they're going to benefit out of a particular transaction. I'll give you an example. The reason you joined this particular platform and you've been sitting in exchange of anything else you'd have done is the reward you looked at. So you weigh the options and you get to judge that I think the best decision out of whatever I can get to do is to be a part of this conversation. Colleagues, when we talk about the human side of leadership, we are essentially interrogating many things that happen in each and every one of us and what influences that. And so our conversation will border on 4 critical pillars, and I'll go through them one by one, after which we will sign off today's conversation. I will start by one that looks at your wiring itself, and it's called psychocybernetics. This was institutionalized. I'm very, very careful with the terms that I tend to use whenever we're talking about a concept that was either discovered or made popular by individuals. I would want to indicate that Maxwell Maltz institutionalized psychocybernetics, and it's basically a concept that focuses on your self-image. Now, an incredible statement that he gives talks about your personal image as an individual. And here's what he says: you are not what you think you are, but you are, or rather, but what you think you are. I'll say that again. So there's punctuation there, which validates what he is talking about. And so when we read it in haste, we may miss the punctuation. So I'll read it again and I'll pause so that the punctuation lands in our hearts. So he says, you are not what you think you are, but what you think you are. In other words, every human being has a tilted bias towards who they feel and think they are. No matter how terrible a human being might be, based on societal standards, according to them, they feel they are a very, very good person. But guess what? What makes you who you are is not what you think you are, but what predominates your thoughts. The depth of your thoughts basically tell us who you are. I love giving an example of what people get to do when they're writing a CV. When they're posturing themselves for a potential employer, they write all the beautiful stuff. I work well under pressure. I'm able to do this and all the beautiful stuff. But guess what? That's what they think they are. But who they really are is when you throw them at the deep end. Then you begin to see whether they really work well under pressure. Colleagues, the summary of all this is that you can never outperform your internal self-image. So whatever you've built concerning who you are supposed to be can never be outperformed by whatever fantasies you possess. So you can have so many aspirations, you can have so many things that you lay on paper, but all those things will fall and crumble except they are aligned to who you think all the time. The dominant thoughts define who you truly are. Your aspirations just give you an indication of probably what you want to become. So it's easy for me to feel that I'm a family-loving person. And I can easily say, I love family. I can easily say it, I love people. I can easily think, I love people. But the question is, what are the dominant thoughts? Aside what I think I love, am I truly a kind of person that loves us? I'll give you an example. If you love family, probably going home should be the most amazing thing you'd love to do. So if you love your family, you are done with all your busy schedule, you've been everywhere, you've attended to every activity, and you are about to leave your structured, busy schedule. Priority ought to be home. Then and only then would we say, yes, indeed, you love family. But if you begin to sneak in all other activities aside from you getting home, then we may begin to think that is what you think. But what you think, you are. Self-image is a critical control mechanism for your personal cybernetic system. So your personal cybernetic system basically talks about your self-image, what you've built about yourself, what you think, everything about your internal wiring. And it is influenced by many things. But if you begin to interrogate your life, when you are seated alone, when there's nobody pushing you, when there's nobody telling you that you are brilliant at what you do, when there's nobody telling you that was amazing, when there's nobody showing up to tell you, I think you are a great leader, when there's nobody telling you that, what do you think yourself? Now, all that will magnetize the true you. And here are the different perspectives of what self-image is, as well as its impact, both on leadership as well as the organization. So if you think yourself in the most positive and accurate way, guess what happens in the leadership impact? You will inspire confidence. You will easily embrace challenges. You will also demonstrate resilience. And ultimately, that will result in high engagement in your organization, innovation, as well as strong retention. This is one of the most painful space, especially for those of us in HR, the question of retention, because we see so much turnover in that particular space. So the question is, why are people leaving? And I read somewhere, and I don't want to sound like an authority as well as engineer of the particular statement, but some extent it tends to be true, because people suggest, and I've read it on occasion without number, I tend to tilt towards agreeing with it, that actually people don't leave or don't quit jobs, they quit their leaders. So depending on the kind of leader you are, chances are that people quit because of the kind of leaders they have. But that is not our conversation for today. We're talking about self-image. Now, negative or limited self-image will have leaders who micromanage. So they're the kind who will not allow people to be the genius that they are. And then this breeds failure in most cases, and also resistance to feedback. What does that do? Gives low morale, high turnover, and stagnant performance. The last one among the categories is inaccurate or overinflated self-image. This particular one, interestingly, always has these elements. You have a leader that has very, very poor listening skills. They take undue risks and always deflect blame. So in deflecting blame, I'm sure you may have experienced individuals or leaders who would always want to be on the podium when the organization is doing well because they should receive the accolades. But when there's a crisis, they look out for who to point a finger at. But all that is a product of self-image and the different problems that it comes with. So what does that tend to bring? It gets to breed a culture of fear, hidden problems, as well as eventual crisis. So colleagues, this tells us that it's critical for you to have a positive and accurate image. So we'll get back to this and probably touch on it a bit on how you can rewire that particular one. Secondly, we look at emotional intelligence. Now, this is a conversation that gets to be held almost on every other leadership conversation that people get to have. A number of people may have already touched on it, but here's the summary of it. Emotional intelligence is no longer just a soft skill. It is a critical leadership competency quality. So it's not just a soft skill like we have taken it for years. It is competency. Research does confirm that emotional intelligence accounts for nearly 90% of what sets high performers apart from peers with similar technical skills and knowledge. So EI gets to separate that. So 90% of what sets high performers apart is this conversation that we are having. Now, here are the 4 components of emotional intelligence. The first one is self-awareness. Now, some of these things I'll be talking about, you've heard about them, that's why I may be using, but I'll be making sure that it lands. I'll never forget this one time. I was having a conference somewhere in one of the facilities, and without knowing, one of the delegates who attended the event was actually capturing a video of me walking and greeting some delegates, and then I go to the auditorium before taking my seat. Later in the evening, she sends me a message, "Sir, I have a video I want to share with you." I'm like, "Oh, perfect. Share with me." I had no idea what the video was. And then she sends me a video of me walking, greeting delegates, and then I go to sit. Trust me, this is not so many years ago. This is just about 5 years ago. But when I got to see the video, it actually dawned on me. It was the first time I actually saw myself walking. As in, I had never paid attention to how I walk as an individual. It had never dawned on me because walking is a default setting that I have. So it happens without me thinking so much on how I'm supposed to walk. But then when I watched that video, it brought in a sense of awareness. For some reason, it dawned that I walk in a particular way. And guess what? Of course, I was proud of how I walk. It was mere coincidence, not that I rehearsed to walk that particular way, but it dawned that, okay, I think I walk okay. What really touched me was how I was greeting some delegates, because some of them were part of our team. And then I was bowing while greeting them. I was showing so much respect and rehearsed again. But then it dawned on me that that is how I was greeting them. Now, colleagues, that is self-awareness in a dramatized sense. Extending it further, self-awareness is being alive to why you feel the way you feel. There are a number of people that would have a brilliant day, probably the previous evening, they were all over the place, they even came from a party, everything was excellent where they were. But in the morning, they wake up feeling some sort of sad. They have no idea what the reason is, but they just woke up feeling sad. And when you talk to them, they're like, I feel sad, I don't know why. Self-awareness is paying attention to why you feel the way you feel and why it matters to you. The ability to recognize and understand your needs. When something happens, you should be able to tell why it has happened that way. Now, I always dig deeper in this conversation because one of the critical elements that contributes to why we act the way we do are things that could have happened many, many years ago, and yet we can't even remember that those things happened to us. Because guess what? They go and sit in our subconscious, and when they settle in the subconscious, they affect how we behave towards life, in as much as the details of those things could have evaporated and we can't even pick them. Guess what? We respond to life based on what has happened to us. Even the stuff that we can't remember happened to us. But the programming of the brain is such that it records that information, keeps it in your subconscious, and causes it to act and react to life based on the programming that is a product of your experiences. By design, we accumulate experiences that gets to form the kind of people we are when we are tested with events that trigger those moments. So the moment something similar to what we experience happens to us, there's a way we feel, there's a way we respond, there's a way we react to life. That is self-awareness. Self-management, dear colleagues, is now you getting to respond, but not influenced by how you feel. You know how you feel, but you pause before you respond. So you take time to make decisions that are rational because you thought through them. So this is where you know you feel a particular way, but you tell yourself you will not react based on how you feel. The third component is social awareness. Social awareness is basically you being able to understand the social makeup of other people. Now, in this space, you simply tell yourself to pay attention to why people feel the way they feel, the emotional reaction, and getting to respect how that they feel that particular way. Here is one universal truth. We don't feel the same way in terms of the quantum sense. We don't feel stuff the same way. Somebody going through a tough situation may not be able to handle it the way you handle it because probably you may have been trained to deal with that stuff. So when you get to experience people that have failed to deal with an issue that you easily sorted yourself, you don't look down on them. You respect the fact that probably they don't know what you know. So this is the space that empathy gets to take shape. I'll give you an example. I remember one time, one young lady sharing a story, and they were talking to a colleague who had lost a sibling. And in trying to comfort that sibling, they tell the sibling, I know how it feels. I also lost. In comforting the friend rather who lost the sibling, say, I know how it feels. I've also lost a sibling before. And so I told this person that I know that is universal language. That's what almost everybody gets to default to. They'll easily tell you, I know how it feels, I know how it hurts, I know. But guess what? What she knows is how it feels to lose her sibling. What she doesn't know is how it feels for that colleague of hers to lose her sibling. So empathy takes off the space that you're on to sit in the space that the other person is. So you get to respect how people feel. Because guess what? You do not know how it feels to lose somebody in their context. You may just know how it feels to lose the one that you lost. So that is now being aware of the environment that you are in. And now as a leader, you begin to understand that even as you deal with colleagues in your workspace, you deal with them not from your strength perspective, but from their wiring perspective. Because you were never there for them to, you were never there, you were never part of their journey and never experienced what they experienced for them to get to where they got. And so these conversations become critical because now they help you to help the people you work with to get to where you are. Because it's so easy for all of us to say, I don't think you acted responsibly in that case. It was a very little matter that you overreacted over. But guess what? The overreaction could be a product of certain triggers, an experience that would have happened to them many, many years ago. And so every time something like that is said to them, it's no longer the event itself, it's no longer the moment itself, it's the emotions of past pain unfolding in the now. And so by the time they're reacting, it goes beyond the current situation. It taps into all the pain they may have experienced in life. Guess what? Human beings are not creatures of logic. Human beings are creatures of emotion. So between how they feel and how right you think you are, human beings will easily pick on how they feel. So social awareness takes care of how they feel. Not that you want to compromise, but because you respect the fact that you were not there when they were getting to where they've gotten to. Which zeroes me into the last one, relational management. This is where you effectively manage relationships, building networks, and the ability to find common ground and building rapport. Exactly what this platform has done. Guess what? Like I said, I have contacted a number of you here. I've just through the conversations that have been going on, checking through who's here and all that. I've reached out to a number of you, and because I am establishing rapport, and I do know that for you to be on this particular platform, I think we have got a common place that we all want to get to. So colleagues, inspirational leadership, influence, and conflict management borders in this particular space. Emotional intelligence, rounded off basically, tells you how effective organizations that pay attention to this get to produce results. And I'll not go through the statistics, but the statistics are there for themselves to tell the bigger story. The next one I'll go to is social intelligence. Social intelligence is the biological basis of connection. I call it the BBC. It's the biological basis of connection. Now, we've touched on it from one of the components that we are from looking at in emotional intelligence. That is exactly what we are focusing on. In as much as in context, EI focuses on individual emotional skills, social intelligence concerns the capacity to understand, navigate, and influence interpersonal relationships. We've had beautiful conversations, the devastating effects of COVID in 2020 all the way to 2022. if you pay attention to the developments that surrounded COVID, not so sure if it's just about you, but I think when COVID started, all of us and a lot of us had so much hope. We knew that obviously a solution will be found, and it's just a matter of time this thing will be dealt with. Yes, lives were being lost. But I think the biggest pain came when we were told to socially isolate. When an announcement was made that society is going into lockdown, it became so heavy, heavier than the pain that we saw when lives were being lost. Why? It's because social isolation is not part of our DNA. By design, we are wired to interface. We are wired to interrelate. We are wired to meet people. That's why those who get incarcerated, the biggest punishment they give them is to be isolated. They are placed in places of isolation. When the announcement was made that we are going into lockdown, it now felt like the entire world was falling apart. Colleagues, there is no substitution to this component. We are wired to live in a society that demands that we navigate a systematic and well-defined way of interacting with people. So what is this all about? This pays attention to critical components that, for example, mirror your reaction. Some of you may have been in a place and you arrive, and guess what? It is so bubbly when you walk in. It's so bubbly while you are there. It continues being bubbly. But then another person walks into the auditorium. All of a sudden, everybody goes quiet. Because what would have happened in that moment is this person walks in. Maybe it is their persona, but then their energy levels are low. They are communicating negativity. They are communicating pain. And because that does not fit in the room, guess what? The entire room neutralizes to manage the temperature of the person that has just walked in. This is the neuroscience of leadership. It helps you understand that as a leader, you ought to manage both how you mirror your feelings as well as pay attention to the feelings as well as the expressions of those people that you are facing. There are a lot of indicators around this space, but I'm sure it's giving you perspective. Just think around every auditorium you sat in, every boardroom you were a part of. And at every given moment, guess what gets to happen? The environment and mood of that conference room or that board session gets to be neutralized based on the average expressions as well as emotions of the people in the environment. We cannot fake that. It's natural, and the body is able to take that. I call this the neural orchestra of social intelligence, the mirror neurons. So they fire both when we do an action and when we see somebody do it. So you sit and experience how people are mirroring their expressions to you, but also what you mirror to them is exactly what they give you. Here is a summary of it. When a leader is genuinely calm and focused, their team's mirror neurons literally begin to sync up with the state. Colleagues, leadership is a biological conversation. I'll never forget this one time. I was leading a team of young people, and when I was conducting interviews one time, I had a cannula, and I could have eaten bad food the previous day, so I went to the hospital. They cannulated me, but they left the cannula because I needed to go back to the hospital the next day for them to pump in some more fluid to just neutralize my body. I'll never forget 6 months after we had done interviews, one young man walks over to me and he tells me, Lloyd, you know what? During the interview session, you were the most intimidating person I ever came across. In fact, I avoided looking at you throughout the interview session. You were so intimidating. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Now, we were having an event, an office event with a number of people around us. And guess what? One of our colleagues walks over, listening to our conversation, and he laughs. And he says, oh, good people, you felt he was that ruthless. Then the gentleman turns and says, exactly. And that's the reason I'm telling him today. Because having come to sit under him, I think he's the most incredible leader I've ever had. But during the session, I'll never forget how intimidating he was. I got home, I'll never forget revisiting that day, and I remember the cannula, and I was like, oh my goodness. My heart was merry. I was so excited for the young people who were interviewing. But then my face was reflecting the experience. And now, because it was reflecting the experience, it failed to cooperate with my heart, and it sent the wrong signal. I was glad that that young man got to experience me, and we are good friends. I've been mentoring him. But then I remembered everybody else that left, everybody that never got that job. Guess what? Wherever they are, I think they are convinced that I was the reason they never got the job. Here's the thing. We all think of ourselves a particular way, but we must be responsible as well for what people see in us. It could be a cannula case. You have a cannula on your wrist. And so it's painting a picture of you appearing to be that intimidating person. So fix that. Take a moment. Look yourself in the mirror. Forget the pain for a moment. Rehearse the beautiful face, because leadership is a biological conversation. The last part of our conversation today, dear colleagues, is what we call dignity intelligence. And I sum it up this way. Colleagues, dignity intelligence pays attention to the fact that we are responsible for how we treat human beings. Leaders with high dignity intelligence, number one, always create environments where people feel valued and respected. They create that environment. Secondly, they foster psychological safety and belonging. Thirdly, they build trust and loyalty more effectively. And finally, they retain talent even during difficult transformation. It's a conversation that is not yet popular, but let's begin to imagine the workspace that you are in. As decisions are made, as conversations are held, as board meetings are being held, the question is, are we truly building capacity in the people that we lead to demonstrate the kind of dignity that each and every one of us is a candidate for? So we are responsible for the kind of experiences people get to have. And as to whether they feel they never experienced or not is a conversation for another day. But I always submit, and I'll submit it at this particular moment as well, that when you receive any kind of feedback, somebody walking over to you and they tell you, I wasn't so happy with how he spoke to me. Don't argue with how they felt, because that is what they felt. So if they tell you they were not happy with how you talked to them, you don't argue with that. Because the summary of it all is this: you never argue with feedback. So what do? Revisit the moment you spoke to them. Again, probably it was a cannula moment. You had that pain in your hand. And as you were speaking, you did not realize that you were a bit pitchy in your voice. You did not pay attention to the tone of your voice. And in as much as your heart indicated that you were calm as you were speaking, the cannula misrepresented you and caused you to sound a particular way. So they felt the pain. You will not need to argue with it. Revisit and correct. Truth is, feedback usually has different connotations to it. It could either be you were truly misunderstood, which is okay. They just misunderstood you. But there are also chances that they did not misunderstand you. You misrepresented yourself. Everything we've talked about is summed up into this framework. It's the 4 A's. So having paid attention to what we've talked about, colleagues, number one, have a brutal honesty with your self-image. Get back to who you feel and think you are. Ask yourself, is this who I am? Secondly, pay attention to what happens in your brain. Have what we call a mental rehearsal. Thirdly, practice empathy. In practicing empathy, we're simply saying, pay attention to what people feel, but don't end at that. Find out why it matters to them. Because a lot of people just end at, this is what they feel. But the end to it is, why does it matter to them? Finally, engineer dignity. In this first year, colleagues, we are simply saying, treat human beings as human beings. Our call to action is number one, conduct a self-image inventory. What belief system or limiting belief system do you feel you currently have? Secondly, practice daily emotional awareness. Check on yourself, find out why you feel the way you feel. But again, don't end at that. You should ask the follow-up question, why it matters to you. Thirdly, seek feedback. There are different ways you can get feedback, but feedback is never designed to be argued against. Number 4, evaluate your initiatives for potential cobra effect. The initiatives could be brilliant, but ask yourself, what could be supporting them in the background? Finally, commit to continuous development of your human leadership skills. I cannot say much on that one because for you just to sit and be a part of this conversation is testament to the fact that you are deliberate about your personal growth. My mentor, John C. Maxwell, says growth is not accidental, it is intentional. He also suggests that the only guarantee that tomorrow will get better is your continuous growth. If you become deliberate about you becoming better, then the guarantee of your tomorrow getting better is a signed check. I will sign off by this quote, that the future of leadership isn't just about more sophisticated systems or advanced technology. It's about returning to the most powerful leadership whoever created, the human being. And so in our conversation today, dear colleagues, we are basically looking at the human side of leadership, in as much as we are interrogating AI in our spaces. So my name is Lloyd. Thank you so much for having been an incredible audience. And I've been part of you as an audience as well up to this moment. Thank you so much. I will take questions. I was running through so that I take questions at the end, but I will allow for questions, contributions.
Thank you so much for that amazing, energizing session, Curtis. Thank you so much. Please, if you have questions for Curtis, you can put it in the Q&A box. Or, okay, I've just seen, it seems the person retreated their hands. But please, if you want to talk live, please just let us know. Raise your hand and we'll just give you the floor. So we have enough time for questions. So please feel free to ask any questions that comes to mind or that came to mind during the session. Okay, no questions. Please feel free to ask the questions, okay? Or maybe you could, if you don't have any questions, you could also raise your hands and let us know what you thought of Curtis's session, what you took away from it, the comments you have, anything, okay? Please just feel free to raise your hand if you want to talk, or put it in the chat box, or even put it in the Q&A box. I see some some comments. Wonderful conversation, Curtis. Well done. Wonderful session. And I believe I saw definitely. I don't know what the definitely is for, but definitely. So please, if you have more, please just let us know, even if it's just an appreciative gesture. Someone says, wonderful conversation, Curtis, well done. Please just put it in the chat box, and I'll just read some aloud for reading sake, I guess.
Absolutely wonderful session, Curtis. Yeah, I like to apologize to the audience. I didn't ask you to, pick up your pen and your notepad before Curtis started. I really, really hope that you did. I have so much on my notepad right now, and I really hope that you all were able to get something from all that he has been saying. Yes, keep the love coming, keep the comments coming, and yes. Okay. Okay. Adam, I think
Yeah.
we can call it a day for today.
Yes,
Yes.
I believe so. I think the audience have gotten way more than they even bargained for today. I think the conversations we've had, from Colette to Curtis to, seems I mistakenly forgot our first speaker. My apologies, but
Christine.
all our three speakers have been amazing as usual, because they are professionals with in-depth knowledge. So yeah, I think, Nathaniel, we can wrap up today's session, and
All right.
hopefully tomorrow's session will be as wonderful as today.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much to all our speakers. Tomorrow we have two wonderful sessions to wrap up the People of Pulse Conference 2025. If you have colleagues who have not been able to join the first 2 days, I think they still have one more opportunity. That's going to be coming up tomorrow. So we have two very, very incredible sessions coming up tomorrow. And it's going to be happening here, same time, same venue, obviously. And yes, all you have to do is just click on the same link and it will lead you here. So thank you, everyone. On behalf of Agile People Ops Pulse 2025, we'd like to thank you all for joining, and see you all tomorrow. Okay, there's a question here, last minute question. Okay, maybe we can just take that before we go. How
Okay.
do one manage a leader that does not take full responsibility, and when you bring this up, he tends to gaslight you? Curtis, I don't know if you'd still like to take the question.
Okay, sorry, you can just repeat the question. I can't seem to see it.
Okay. The question is, how do you manage a leader that does not take full responsibility, and when you bring this up, he tends to gaslight you?
Okay, interesting one. I love that. Now, there's usually background to that. And let me just bring just give me a second. Sorry. I was trying to bring the video on. I've lost that, but it's fine. You're able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. It's fine.
Okay. So I would easily give a direct response to that, but it might not give the full context that would deal with a specific question. So usually when it's a question that borders on this kind of a leader that I have, how do I get to manage them? Because there could be other surrounding issues around that kind of a relationship. Because if on one end, the leader is insecure, for example, I'm starting from that perspective, it could be the kind of relationship that you're building with them. Now, it stems from quite a lot of things. It could be a build up to where you are, the kind of relationship that you have with them, or just their own insecurity. So we have to really establish what the issue is. So if the issue is their insecurity, remember, if they are your leader, chances are that they've got what we call the privilege that you may not have. Like information is segmented. So if they are your leader, it means they are in a class where they interact with certain information that you may not be, certain information that you may not be privy to. And if they feel that you try to outsmart them all the time, then it would be a two-way kind of conversation. Again, they could have their own issues, and probably you may not have just grown the relationship well. What I always advise to organizations that face such challenges is run with systems. Systems have a way of telling their own stories, way above the emotions that we may both carry. Because you trying to outsmart your superior might come with its own consequences, because we have no full details of why he may be acting that way. Probably there's something that he may not have told you, which people may have told him about you. He may have a certain perception about you that you may not be aware he has about you. So the starting point is probably deal with the relationship first, and then everything else can build towards the same goal. Because remember, the success of the organization benefits not only your superior, it benefits you as well. So if it happens that your end point is frustrated by where your superior is seated, then there could be relational issues that need to be dealt with. Once you fix that, then everything else falls off. Yes, there are problematic leaders, but we should choose not to be the problematic leaders. Our responsibility is to ensure that we become the best versions of leaders that anybody can ever have. But when there's always that conflict, please deal with the relationship. Have a third eye into the conversation, not to outsmart your superior, but to deal with the issue. So the ultimate is to fix the problem and not to fix individuals. But I hear you, it's there in most places where others just get intimidated, others it's just a case of insecurity, but try as much as possible to fix the problem and not the person.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome.
Wow,
Thank you
that
so
was very, very insightful, Nathan. That was so inspiring. And sorry for cutting it. I guess when Curtis was talking, I was like, maybe someone has questions out of the information that Curtis just gave us. So please, before my co-host takes over, you have a few minutes to just ask questions, if just in case something came to mind whilst Curtis was answering whilst he was answering. So please, if you have any question, you have a few minutes more, you can just bring that question out. Okay, it seems no one has any question. Nathaniel, please, you can take over.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Curtis, for that. Yes, we'll call it a day for today. Thank you, Dr. Mohammed Khan. Yeah, it's actually good to have you here. Okay, thank you, everyone. See you tomorrow, same time, same link. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Curtis.